Let her go. Who the hell are you?
Someone who hates rude men.
You think you can just walk up here and tell me what to do? Do you know how much this table costs? Do you know who I am?
Let her go. Who the hell are you? Someone who hates rude men. You think you can just walk up here and tell me what to do? Do you know how much this table costs? Do you know who I am? I do not care who you are, but I know she asked you to stop. And I know you are gripping her wrist hard enough to bruise. So I will say this exactly one more time before things get very unfortunate for you. Let her go. Have you ever been in a situation where the air suddenly feels too heavy to breathe, where the noise of a crowded room fades into a dull roar, and all you can hear is the pounding of your own heart in your ears? That instinct that screams at you to run, even when your feet feel like they are encased in concrete. That is exactly where Felicia was. And if you have ever ignored that voice in your head only to regret it seconds later, hit that like button right now. Because this story is about to show you why you should always trust your gut, and how the most terrifying moment of your life might just lead you to the person who is destined to save it. But before we get to the saving, we have to survive the danger. And trust me, the danger was sitting right across the table. It was a Tuesday night in Chicago, the kind where the wind whips off the lake and cuts right through your coat. Inside the Velvet Lounge, it was warm, dim, and smelled of expensive cologne and desperation. Felicia Adebayo sat in a booth that cost more than her monthly rent, wishing she was literally anywhere else. She was 26 years old, a nursing student running on 4 hours of sleep and too much caffeine, and she had let her friends talk her into this date. Brad seemed nice enough on the app. Corporate job, nice smile, pictures with a golden retriever. But in person, Brad was on his third whiskey sour, and his smile looked more like a snarl. He had spent the last 40 minutes talking about his bonus, his car, and why immigrants like her should be grateful to be in his city. Felicia looked down at her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She had typed the message 3 minutes ago, but hadn't sent it yet. Baba, I don't like this. The vibe is off. Call me in 10 minutes. She hit send. The vibration of the phone sending the message felt like a tiny lifeline tethering her back to reality, back to safety. She looked up to find Brad staring at her. His eyes dropped to her chest, then flicked back up to her face with a look that made her skin crawl. You are quiet. I thought Nigerian girls were supposed to be loud. Fiery. Isn't that the stereotype? Felicia stiffened. Her spine hit the back of the velvet booth with a thump. She adjusted the sleeves of her thrifted yellow cardigan, pulling them down over her hands. It was a nervous habit she had developed in the ER waiting room. I am just tired, Brad. My rotation at the hospital ran long. I deal with trauma patients. It takes a lot out of you. Brad laughed. It was a wet, dismissive sound. You nurses work too hard. Scrubbing bedpans and taking orders. You need someone to take care of you. Someone who knows how to show you a good time. He signaled the waiter for another round without asking her. 2 more, and make hers a double. She needs to loosen up. Felicia felt that prickle on the back of her neck intensify. It was the same feeling she got when a patient was about to code. The atmosphere shifted. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch toward her. I think I'm going to go. Felicia grabbed her purse. I am not feeling well. Brad's hand shot across the table. He grabbed her wrist. His grip was shocking in its violence. Sit down. Brad, let go. I paid for dinner. You are not going anywhere until I say so. You think you can just eat my food and run. I don't think so. Adrenaline flooded Felicia's system. She looked around the lounge. It was full of people. Couples laughing, business partners shaking hands, waiters weaving through the tables. But no one was looking at them. They were in a bubble of hostility, invisible to the rest of the world. She opened her mouth to cause a scene, to scream, to flip the table. But she didn't have to, because 3 booths away, in the deepest shadow of the lounge, someone had been watching. Seo Min-Ho was not supposed to be there. He was supposed to be in a safe house on the north side. He was supposed to be waiting for the heat to die down after a meeting with a rival triad went violently south. He was supposed to be tending to the 4-inch knife wound in his side that was currently soaking his bespoke charcoal suit with blood. But the safe house had been compromised, and Min-Ho, The prince of the CO syndicate, the man they called the Shadow of Chicago, had nowhere else to go. So he sat in the dark, nursing a water, bleeding silently, and watching the room. He had been trained since he was a boy to observe. Threat assessment was his first language. He noticed the waiter with the shaky hands. He noticed the exit signs. And he noticed the woman in the yellow dress. She radiated a kind of warmth that the rest of this gray, cold city lacked. She looked like the sun. And he saw the predator sitting across from her. He saw the text message she sent. He saw the tremble in her hand. And when Brad grabbed her wrist, Min-Ho made a choice. It was a stupid choice. A reckless choice. His father would have beaten him for it. You do not expose yourself for a stranger. You do not engage when you are wounded. But Min-Ho stood up. The pain in his side was blinding. It felt like a hot poker was being twisted in his ribs. He ignored it. He walked across the lounge, moving with a fluid, predatory grace that made people instinctively move out his way. He stopped at their table. Let her go. The voice was low, smooth. It carried a weight that Brad, in his drunken arrogance, failed to recognize. Brad looked up. He saw a handsome Korean man in a suit that cost more than Brad's car. But Brad didn't see the danger in Min-Ho's eyes. He only saw someone smaller than him. Who the hell are you? Min-Ho didn't blink. Someone who hates rude men. Brad stood up. He was big, bulky from hours at the gym, doing vanity muscles. He shoved the table aside. You want a piece of this? You think you can take me? Brad threw a punch. It was sloppy, a drunk, angry swing meant to intimidate. Min-Ho didn't even flinch. He stepped to the side, a movement so subtle it looked like he just vanished. He grabbed Brad's wrist. He twisted. There was a sickening pop. Brad howled, a sound of pure shock and pain. Min-Ho didn't stop. He shoved Brad backward. It looked effortless, but the force sent Brad stumbling into a waiter carrying a tray of martinis. Glass shattered. Alcohol sprayed everywhere. People screamed. The bubble of invisibility popped. Min-Ho looked at Felicia. For a second, their eyes met. And in that second, Felicia saw something that terrified her more than Brad ever could. She saw a void, darkness. But deep in that darkness, she saw pain. Go, Min-Ho said. His voice was tight. Leave. Now. He turned to walk away. He had done his good deed. Now he needed to disappear before the police arrived. But he didn't make it. His legs gave out. The adrenaline that had sustained him evaporated, leaving only the reality of blood loss. He didn't fall dramatically. He just crumpled. He slid down the side of the booth, his hand pressing against his side, his face turning the color of ash. Felicia stood there. The exit was right there. She could run. Her father was probably calling her right now. She could run to her car, lock the doors, and never look back. That was a smart thing to do. That was a safe thing to do. But Felicia Adebayo was a nurse. She looked at the exit. Then she looked at the man who had just saved her. She saw the dark stain spreading rapidly across the side of his expensive jacket. Damn it. She dropped to her knees beside him. The glass on the floor bit into her jeans. Sir, can you hear me? Min-Ho blinked. The room was spinning. The lights were blurring into streaks of neon. He felt soft hands on his face. He smelled vanilla and shea butter. It was a grounding scent, a safe scent. I am fine. He gritted the words out. Go. You are bleeding out. Felicia snapped. Her voice shifted. She wasn't a scared girl on a date anymore. She was in charge. She stripped off her yellow cardigan and pressed it hard against the side. Min-Ho groaned. If you stay here, the police will come. Do you want the police? Min-Ho looked at her. Through the haze of pain, he saw her fierce eyes. Most people ran from him. Even when he wasn't bleeding, they sensed a violence in him and ran. This woman was pressing down on his wound with a determination that frightened him. No police, he whispered. Then you are coming with me. Getting a 6-foot-tall man into a Toyota Corolla while he is half conscious is not easy. It was a miracle of physics and desperation. Felicia dragged him out the back exit, ignoring the chaos in the lounge. She shoved him into the passenger seat and reclined it. The drive to her studio apartment in Rogers Park was a blur. The rain had turned into a deluge, hammering against the windshield. Her phone rang. Baba. She ignored it. She couldn't explain this. Not yet. Her apartment was tiny. Just a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. But it was clean. She dumped Min-Ho onto her futon. He was shivering now. Shock was setting in. Felicia went into triage mode. She grabbed her first aid kit. It wasn't a little box you buy at the pharmacy. It was a heavy-duty kit. She had stolen supplies for over the years. Sutures, lidocaine, heavy gauze. She knelt beside him. This is going to hurt. I have to cut the shirt. Min-Ho nodded. His eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. She took her scissors and cut through the bespoke charcoal fabric. It fell away, revealing a torso that was defined by muscle and scarred by violence. And there on his left side was the wound. A nasty slash. Deep, but clean. You are lucky. It missed the major arteries. But it needs stitches. Now, you act like you have done this before. Min-Ho mumbled, I am a nursing student. I stitch up drunks and construction workers every day. You are just another patient. She poured antiseptic over the wound. Min-Ho hissed. His hand gripped the edge of the futon, so hard his knuckles turned white. But he didn't scream. He didn't pull away. You have a high pain tolerance. Felicia muttered, threading the needle. Occupational hazard. For the next hour, the only sounds in the apartment were the rain drumming against the window and the soft snip of scissors. Felicia worked with steady hands. Her brow was furrowed in concentration. She could feel his eyes on her. Even in his delirium, he was watching, studying. When she finished, she taped gauze over the stitches and sat back. She wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. You need fluids and rest, but you lost a lot of blood. Min-Ho tried to sit up. The room tilted violently. He fell back against the cushions. I can't stay here. You are not going anywhere. Felicia stood up. Not unless you want to pass out on the sidewalk in the rain. And I am not carrying you back to the car. She went to the kitchenette. She had made a pot of pepper soup yesterday. It was spicy, savory, full of herbs and heat. She heated up a bowl. The aroma filled the small space, chasing away the metallic smell of blood. She brought him the bowl. Eat. It will help. Min-Ho looked at the bowl suspiciously. What is it? It is Nigerian pepper soup. My mother's recipe. It cures everything, even stupidity, which you clearly have a lot of, getting into knife fights and then saving strange women in bars. Min-Ho took a sip. The heat of the chilies hit the back of his throat. It was shocking, intense, and absolutely delicious. It warmed him from the inside out. Thank you, he said, for the soup, for saving my life. Felicia paused. She looked at him, really looked at him. Without the armor of the suit, without the posturing, he looked young and tired, so incredibly tired. You saved me first, she said quietly. Who was that guy? The one who stabbed you, a business rival. What kind of business involves knives? Min-Ho looked at her. His dark eyes guarded 1,000 secrets. The kind you stay very far away from. Felicia. He knew her name. He must have heard Brad say it. But hearing it in his voice, with that subtle accent, made her shiver. It sounded like a secret. He stayed for 2 days. Not because he couldn't leave. His recovery time was unnaturally fast. It was like his body was used to repairing itself. But he stayed because, for the first time in his life, he didn't want to leave. For 48 hours, the prince of the CO syndicate lived in a 400-square-foot apartment with a nursing student. He lay on the futon and watched her. He watched her study for her exams, mumbling about anatomy. He watched her talk to her father on the phone, her voice changing into a melodic dialect he didn't understand but loved to listen to. He watched her dance around the kitchen while she cooked. He learned that she was working 2 jobs to send money back to her parents in Lagos. He learned that her father had an auto repair shop that was failing. He learned that she wanted to open a community clinic for undocumented immigrants because she believed health care was a human right, not a privilege. And she learned about him, not the facts. He didn't tell her about the drugs or the territory wars or the people he had hurt, but she learned that he was quiet, that he folded his blankets with military precision, that he had nightmares that made him wake up gasping for air. On the third morning, reality came crashing back. A black SUV pulled up to the curb outside her building. It looked like a hearse. Min-Ho saw it from the window. His posture changed instantly. The vulnerability vanished. The cold mask returned. He buttoned his ruined jacket, hiding the bandages. "My ride is here," he said. Felicia stood by the kitchen counter. She felt a strange pang in her chest, a sense of loss, which was ridiculous. He was a dangerous stranger. She should be glad he was leaving. Min-Ho reached into his pocket. He pulled out a thick envelope. It was the only thing he had saved from his jacket, besides his phone. He placed it on the counter. "For your trouble, and for your silence." Felicia stared at the envelope. It was thick. There was probably more money in there than she made in 6 months. It could pay off her tuition. It could save her father's shop. But looking at it made her feel sick. "I don't want your money." Min-Ho looked confused. "Everyone wants money. Felicia, I helped you because you were hurt, not because I want to be paid." He stepped closer. "You are struggling. I see the notices on your counter. I heard you on the phone. This could change your life." "My life is fine." Felicia picked up the envelope and shoved it against his chest. "I don't need blood money to fix it." They stared at each other. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Min-Ho looked at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. In his world, every transaction had a cost. Every favor was a debt. Kindness was just a currency. But she was refusing the currency. Finally, he tucked the envelope back into his pocket. He reached into his other pocket and pulled out a small, sleek card. It was black metal, heavy, with a single gold phone number embossed on it. "No name. If you ever need anything," he said. "Anything at all, you call this number. I won't need anything. God, I hope not." He whispered. He stepped closer. He invaded her space, just like Brad had, but this felt entirely different. The air between them crackled. He reached out, his thumb grazing her cheekbone. His skin was rough, but his touch was gentle. "You are too good for this world. Felicia, stay safe." Then he turned and walked out the door. Felicia stood there for a long time after he left. She touched her cheek where his thumb had been. The apartment felt empty, too quiet. She tried to go back to normal. She went to her classes. She worked her shifts at the hospital. She called her dad and assured him she was swearing off dating apps forever. But the city felt different now. Every time she walked down the street, she felt eyes on her, not in a creepy way, in a protective way. When she walked home late from the library, the streetlights seemed brighter. When she went to the grocery store, the lingering guys on the corner, who usually catcalled her, suddenly found something very interesting to look at on the ground when she passed. He was watching, or his people were. 2 weeks later, Felicia came home to find her apartment door unlocked. Panic seized her. She dropped her bag. She grabbed the pepper spray from her keychain. She kicked the door open, ready to scream. But it wasn't a burglar. Sitting on her futon, looking like she was waiting for a bus, was an elegant Korean woman in her 50s. She wore a Chanel suit that cost more than the entire building. She was flanked by 2 massive bodyguards who looked like they were carved out of granite. "Miss Adebayo," the woman said. Her voice was like ice. "I am Seo Min-Ho, Min-Ho's aunt. Get out of my house." Felicia aimed the pepper spray at the woman's face. The woman chuckled. It was a dry sound. "Put that toy away. I am not here to hurt you. I am here to hire you. I already told your nephew I don't want his money. This isn't about Min-Ho. It is about his sister, Yuna." Eugene stood up. She smoothed her skirt. "My niece is difficult. She has severe agoraphobia. She has a heart condition. She refuses traditional doctors. She throws things at nurses. We have gone through 5 in the last month." Felicia lowered the spray slightly. "And this concerns me because Min-Ho says you have a way with difficult patients. He says you have hands that heal. And Min-Ho trusts no one." Felicia felt a flush rise to her cheeks. He had talked about her. "We need a live-in medical companion." Eugene continued. Someone who can handle her medication, monitor her vitals, and perhaps keep her from losing her mind in that house. The pay is triple what you make at the hospital, and we will pay off your student loans. Immediately. Triple. Debt-free. Felicia's mind raced. This was a trap. She knew it. You don't get involved with people like this without getting burned. But she thought of her father's voice on the phone yesterday, sounding tired and defeated. She thought of the final notice on the electricity bill. And, traitorously, she thought of Min-Ho. Why me? Felicia asked. Yi Jin looked at her with cold assessment. Because you are the only person Min-Ho has allowed near him in 5 years who didn't try to kill him. I will do it, Felicia said, but strictly as a nurse. Nothing else. Yi Jin smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Just a nurse. Pack your bags, Miss Adebayo. The car is waiting. The Seo estate was a fortress. It sat on a cliff overlooking Lake Michigan, a sprawling structure of glass, steel, and cold gray stone. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a mausoleum. There were cameras everywhere. Guards patrolled the perimeter with dogs. Felicia was given a room in the east wing. It was bigger than her entire apartment. The bed sheets were silk. The bathroom had a tub deep enough to swim in, but the windows didn't open more than a few inches. Safety, they said. Yuna was exactly as described. She was 20 years old, pale, thin, and currently throwing a vase at the wall. Get out! She screamed when Felicia walked in. I don't want another babysitter. Felicia caught the vase. It was heavy crystal. She set it down on the table. I am not a babysitter. I am Felicia. And if you throw that again, I'm going to make you clean it up. Yuna stopped. She blinked. You're the girl. What girl? The girl who stitched up Appa. Min-Ho. He wouldn't shut up about the soup. He said it was liquid fire. Felicia couldn't help it. She smiled. It was just soup. Yuna eyed her. You're pretty. Appa likes pretty things, but he usually breaks them. I am not easily broken. Felicia walked over to bed. Now give me your arm. I need to take your blood pressure. And if you bite me, like you did the last nurse, I will tell Min-Ho you are being a brat. Yuna laughed. It was a rusty sound, like she hadn't used it in a while. It was the start of an unlikely friendship. For a month, Felicia lived in the glass fortress. She managed Yuna's meds. She coaxed her into the garden for fresh air. She introduced the household staff to Fela Kuti records, playing Afrobeat loud enough to shake the crystal chandeliers. She brought life into the gray house. But Min-Ho was a ghost. She saw him rarely. He left before dawn and returned late. Sometimes she would see him in the hallway, surrounded by men in suits, his face hard and unreadable. He would nod to her, a barely perceptible acknowledgement, and keep walking. He was a shadow again, the prince of the syndicate. The man in the bar, who had looked at her with vulnerable eyes, was gone. Or so she thought. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Felicia couldn't sleep. The silence of the mansion was oppressive. She went down to the kitchen to make tea. The kitchen was dark, illuminated only by the light from the open refrigerator. Min-Ho was standing there. He was leaning against the counter, drinking water straight from a bottle. He was wearing his suit pants, but had taken off the jacket and tie. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the top, sleeves rolled up. He looked exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that goes down to the bone. He froze when he saw her. Felicia. Hi. She tightened her robe around herself. I didn't know you were home. I just got in. He turned to face her. The kitchen island was between them, but it felt like nothing. How is Yuna? He asked. She is getting better. She walked to the gate today. We listened to music. She ate all her dinner. Min-Ho let out a breath. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. Thank you. I am just doing my job. It is more than a job. You bring light into this place. Felicia. Even the guards are smiling. It is unnerving. He walked around the island. He moved slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal. Or maybe he was a wild animal. Try not to spook her. Why do you stay? He asked quietly. You know what we are. You know where this money comes from. Felicia looked at him. She saw the gun harness on the counter behind him. She saw the bruise on his knuckles. Because I see who you are underneath the suits and the scary reputation, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I see a man who loves his sister, a man who saved a stranger in a bar even when he was bleeding out. I am not a good man. Felicia, maybe not. She stepped closer. But you're trying to be. Min-Ho looked at her with such intensity that Felicia felt her knees go weak. He reached out. He cupped her face, his hands warm against her skin. You are dangerous. He whispered. Me? I am a nurse. You make me want things I cannot have. You make me want a life I do not deserve. He leaned in, and then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate. It tasted of whiskey and smoke and longing. It was the kiss of a man who was drowning and had finally found air. Felicia kissed him back. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him down to her. For a moment, the dark world outside didn't exist. There was only the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, and the man who held her like she was the only precious thing in the world. For the next few weeks, they existed in a bubble. Stolen moments, a lingering touch in the library, a shared coffee before he left for business. Min-Ho began to change. The hardness around his eyes softened. He started coming home earlier. One evening, he found her in the garden. The sun was setting over the lake, painting the sky in purples and oranges. I am thinking about making changes, he said, staring at the horizon. What kind of changes? Legitimacy, pivoting the business, clean energy, tech, leaving the dark operations behind. Can you do that? My father won't like it. The old guard won't like it. It will be a war. Why do you want to do it? He turned to her. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. Because I want a future where I can come home to you without washing blood off my hands first. Felicia's heart soared. It was a promise, a hope. But in the world of the CO syndicate, happiness is a liability. Hope is a weakness. And the monsters were watching. It happened 3 days later. Felicia was in the kitchen making tea for Yuna. The house was quiet. Then the back door exploded. It wasn't a sound. It was a concussion. Glass flew everywhere. Before Felicia could scream, men in tactical gear swarmed the room. They moved with terrifying efficiency. She tried to run, but a heavy hand grabbed her hair. A bag was thrown over her head. Everything went black. She was dragged, thrown into a van. The ride was bumpy and smelled of gasoline. She counted the seconds, trying to stay calm, trying to remember her training. Panic kills. Stay focused. When the van stopped, she was hauled out. She heard the sound of water, waves lapping against metal. A warehouse. She was tied to a chair. The zip ties bit into her wrists. The hood was ripped off. Felicia gasped, blinking against the harsh overhead lights. She was in a rusted warehouse. It smelled of old fish and oil. Standing in front of her was a man. He looked like Min-Ho, but older, crueler. His face was a map of lines etched by ruthlessness. He wore a suit that was immaculate, a stark contrast to the filth of the warehouse. Chairman Seo, Min-Ho's father. So, the chairman said. He circled her chair, looking at her like she was a piece of livestock. This is a distraction. Where is Min-Ho? Felicia demanded. Her voice was strong, despite the fear hammering in her chest. My son is currently being detained by his loyal lieutenants. He has gotten soft, talking about going legit, talking about shutting down our most profitable supply lines. And I hear it is because of a woman. He stopped in front of her. He leaned down, his cologne smelling of sandalwood and decay. You have corrupted his focus. I made him happy. Felicia spat. Something you clearly know nothing about. The chairman slapped her. It was a casual, backhanded blow. Felicia's head snapped to the side. She tasted copper. Love is a weakness, the chairman said, wiping his hand on a handkerchief. And I need my son strong. He is to marry the daughter of the Yamamoto clan next month. A merger. It will unite our territories. You are in the way. So kill me, Felicia challenged. She looked him in the eye. See what that does to him. He will burn your empire to the ground. The chairman laughed. Oh, I know. That is why I won't kill you. He pulled out a phone. He dialed a number and put it on speaker. Father. Min-Ho's voice came through. It was ragged, frantic. If you touch her, she is alive, Min-Ho, for now. But here is the deal. The chairman looked at Felicia, smiling. You will agree to the Yamamoto marriage. You will take your place as the head of the dark operations. You will stop this foolishness about legitimacy. You will become the monster I raised you to be. No, Min-Ho roared. Then say goodbye to Miss Adebayo. I will send her back to Nigeria in a box. The guard next to Felicia raised a gun to her temple. The cold metal pressed against her skin. Felicia screamed, Min-Ho, don't do it. Don't let him win. Silence. The chairman barked. Min-Ho's breathing was heavy over the phone. It sounded like a wounded animal. Okay. The word was a whisper, a broken thing. Okay, I'll do it. Just let her go. Let her walk away. Unharmed. Promise me. I promise. The chairman said smoothly, but she must leave Chicago. Tonight, and never return. Felicia was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Felicia. Min-Ho's voice was soft. Dead. I am sorry. Min-Ho, please? Go. He whispered. Please, just go. The line went dead. And in that silence, Felicia felt her heart break, not just for herself, but for him, the prince who had tried to step into the light, only to be dragged back into the dark to save her. They put her on a plane to London that night, then a connecting flight to Lagos. They told her if she ever stepped foot in the U.S. again, they would kill her father. They would kill Yuna. So she went. She sat in the window seat, watching the lights of Chicago fade into the darkness below. She touched the spot on her cheek where he had kissed her, and she vowed that this wasn't the end. But for now, the shadow had won. If you are feeling the heartbreak right now, don't look away, because the story isn't over. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what you are really made of. And sometimes the knight in shining armor isn't the one who saves the day. Sometimes it is the nurse with a heart of fire. Hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is going to change everything you think you know about revenge. 6 months passed. To Felicia, they felt like 6 years. Lagos was hot, humid, and loud. It was home, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Felicia worked in her aunt's small clinic in Acadia. She bandaged scraped knees. She treated malaria. She smiled at patients. But inside, she was a ghost. She lived in a state of suspended animation. Her body was in Nigeria, but her heart was stuck in a cold, gray mansion in Chicago. Every night, she sat on her narrow bed and scrolled through the news on her phone. Seo Corp announces merger with Yamamoto Industries. Seo Min-Ho appointed CEO in ruthless power play. Gang violence in Chicago drops as Seo syndicate consolidates power. The photos showed a man she barely recognized. Min-Ho looked sharper, colder. His eyes, which had once looked at her with such vulnerability, were now dead. He was a monster his father wanted. He was a prince of darkness. And it was her fault. He had sold his soul to buy her life. Felicia would turn off her phone and pick up the only thing she had left of him, the black metal card. If you ever need anything, she traced the embossed gold numbers. She needed him. She needed to scream at him. She needed to save him. But she couldn't. The threat against her father was real. The threat against Yuna was real. So she stayed silent. She stayed away until the text came. It was 3 a.m. in Lagos. Felicia's phone buzzed on the nightstand. It wasn't a block number. It was Yuna. Felicia sat up, her heart hammering. She opened the message. It was a single image, a medical report. Patient, Seo Daehyun. Diagnosis, pancreatic adenocarcinoma. Stage 4, metastatic. Prognosis, weeks. The chairman. The monster was dying. Felicia stared at the screen. Her hands were shaking. If the chairman was dying, his grip was loosening. The fear that held Min-Ho captive. The threat that kept her away. It was all about to crumble. But Min-Ho didn't know. The report was confidential. The chairman would hide this weakness until his last breath. He would force the marriage, seal the merger, and trap Min-Ho forever before he died. Unless someone told him. Unless someone stopped it. Felicia didn't think. She didn't pack a bag. She grabbed her passport, her purse, and the black card. She booked the next flight to Chicago. The flight was 18 hours of pure anxiety. She imagined Min-Ho alone in that glass fortress. She imagined him walking down the aisle to marry a woman he didn't love, sealing his fate as a crime lord forever. She couldn't let that happen. When she landed at O'Hare, the cold air hit her like a slap. It was winter again. The wind was brutal. She didn't go to her old apartment. It wasn't hers anymore. She didn't go to the mansion. The guard would shoot her on sight. She went to the only place that mattered, the Art Institute of Chicago. According to the news, tonight was the engagement gala, the night Min-Ho would publicly announce his union with the Yamamoto heiress, the night the Seo syndicate would become untouchable. Security was tight. Black SUVs lined the streets. Men with earpieces patrolled the entrance. It was a fortress of wealth and power. Felicia stood across the street, shivering in her thin coat. How was she going to get in? She was just a nurse, a nobody. Then she saw a side door open. A catering van was unloading, and standing by the door, smoking a cigarette with nervous, jerky movements, was Yuna. Felicia ran. She didn't care about the cameras. She didn't care about the risk. Yuna looked up. Her eyes went wide. She dropped her cigarette. Felicia, you came back. Yuna grabbed her and pulled her into the shadows of the loading dock. She hugged her fierce and hard. Yuna felt thinner. Frilier, he is miserable, Felicia. Yuna whispered into her ear. He looks like a walking corpse. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. He just works. Get me in, Felicia said. Yuna pulled back. She looked at Felicia's face. She saw the fire there. The same fire that had made Min-Ho fall in love. Okay, Yuna nodded. Come with me. 10 minutes later, Felicia was standing in a staff bathroom, looking at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a stolen catering uniform, a white button-down shirt that was too big, and black slacks. She pulled her hair back into a tight bun. She looked like part of the furniture, invisible, just the way she needed to be. The ballroom was breathtaking. High ceilings, chandeliers dripping with crystals, priceless art on the walls. It was filled with the elite of the underworld, men in tuxedos who ordered hits over dessert. Women in diamonds paid for with blood money. Felicia moved through the crowd with a tray of champagne flutes. She kept her head down. She listened. He looked strong tonight. One man said, "The merger is brilliant. The Yamamotos will give us the port access. Ruthless, just like his father." Felicia felt sick. They were celebrating the death of the man she loved. She made her way to the mezzanine. It was a balcony overlooking the main stage. It was shadowed, quiet, the perfect vantage point. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. The chairman was wheeled out onto the stage. He looked frail. His skin was yellow, his cheeks sunken, but his eyes were still sharp, still cruel. He sat in his wheelchair like it was a throne. And then Min-Ho walked out. Felicia's breath caught in her throat. He was wearing a black tuxedo. He looked devastatingly handsome and completely empty. There was no light in his eyes, no spark. He moved like a puppet whose strings were being pulled by the dying man in the wheelchair. He walked to the podium. He adjusted the microphone. "Thank you all for coming." His voice echoed through the hall. It was steady, cold. Tonight marks a new chapter for the Seo family. Tonight, we unite with our honored friends, the Yamamoto clan. Tonight, we secure our legacy. He paused. His hand clenched the side of the podium. His knuckles turned white. He looked out at the sea of faces, at the predators, at the sycophants. And then he looked up. It was impossible. He couldn't have seen her. She was in the shadows of the mezzanine, wearing a catering uniform, surrounded by darkness. But he looked up. Their eyes locked across the vast ballroom. It was a jolt of electricity. Visible, terrifying. Min-Ho stopped speaking. The silence stretched. People began to murmur. He stared at her. His expression cracked. The mask of the CEO crumbled, revealing the man beneath. The The shock, the disbelief, and then the dawn of a furious, desperate hope. He looked down at his father. The chairman was glaring at him, tapping his watch. Continue. Min-Ho looked back at Felicia. She didn't move. She didn't wave. She just stood there, a witness to his soul. And in that moment, Min-Ho made a choice. He took a deep breath. He stood taller. The emptiness left his eyes, replaced by a burning resolve. I said this marks a new chapter. He said into the microphone. His voice was different now. Stronger, richer, but not the one you expect. Gasps rippled through the room. Min-Ho reached into his pocket. He pulled out a velvet ring box. The engagement ring meant for the Yamamoto heiress. He set it on the podium. I will not be marrying Miss Yamamoto. The room erupted. Shouts. Confusion. The Yamamoto patriarch stood up, his face red with rage. Nor will I be continuing the legacy of the Seo syndicate as it stands. Min-Ho shouted over the noise. For too long, I have let fear dictate my choices. I let a good woman go because I was afraid I couldn't protect her, because I was told that love is a weakness. He looked directly at the chairman. But I realized something. I don't need to protect her. I need to stand beside her. And she taught me that love isn't a weakness. It is the only thing worth fighting for. Seize him. The chairman shrieked. His voice was thin and reedy. Guards. Seize him. But the guards didn't move. They stood along the walls, their arms crossed. They looked at Min-Ho. Over the last 6 months, while the chairman withered, Min-Ho had been leading. He had treated his men with respect. He had paid them well. He had protected their families. Loyalty is earned, not inherited. The Seo syndicate is finished. Min-Ho declared, all illegal operations cease tonight. We are moving into clean energy. We are going legitimate. Those who want to build a future, stay. Those who want to live in the past, get out. He stepped away from the podium. He didn't run. He walked. He walked down the stairs from the stage, ignoring the screaming chairman, ignoring the furious Yamamoto clan. He walked through the stunned crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea. He headed straight for the stairs to the mezzanine. Felicia stepped out of the shadows. She met him halfway up the stairs. Min-Ho stopped inches from her. He was breathing hard. His eyes were wide, searching her face as if checking she was real. You are an idiot, Felicia said, tears streaming down her face. You started a mutiny on live television. You came back. He breathed. I told you to go. I don't take orders well. You should know that by now. He reached out and touched her face. His hand was trembling. My father is dying, Felicia said. Yuna told me. His hold on you is a ghost. Min-Ho, you are free. Min-Ho looked back at the ballroom. It was chaos. People were shouting, leaving, arguing. The police sirens were already wailing in the distance. The empire was crumbling, but he didn't care. He looked at Felicia, the woman in the ill-fitting catering uniform who shone brighter than any diamond in the room. I have nothing now, he said. No inheritance, no army, just a lot of enemies and a dying name. You have a sister who adores you, Felicia corrected. You have a brain that can build something new. She took his hand. She laced her fingers through his. And she whispered, you have a nurse who makes really good pepper soup. Min-Ho laughed. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated relief. It was the sound of a man who had put down a heavy burden after carrying it for a lifetime. He pulled her into his arms. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling the scent of vanilla and shea butter. That is all I ever wanted, he whispered against her skin. They stood there on the stairs, holding each other while the world burned down around them. And for the first time in his life, Min-Ho wasn't afraid of the fire, because he wasn't alone. 3 years later, the clinic on the south side of Chicago was bustling. The sign above the door read, the Seo Adebayo Community Health Center. Inside, the waiting room was painted a cheerful yellow. It smelled of antiseptic and coffee. Felicia sat at her desk, rubbing her temples. It was flu season. The line was out the door. She signed a prescription pad and handed it to an elderly patient. Take this with food, Mrs. Johnson. No arguments. Yes, ma'am. The woman chuckled. Taking the slip, the back door opened. Min-Ho walked in. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo. He wasn't wearing a charcoal suit. He was wearing dark jeans and a black sweater. He looked younger. The grayness was gone from his skin, replaced by the healthy flush of a man who slept at night. He was carrying 2 takeout containers. Lunch, he announced. He set the containers on her desk. The smell of spicy tomato rice filled the office. Jollof rice from that place on 47th, he said. And I asked for extra plantains. You are a lifesaver. Felicia groaned, collapsing back into her chair. I try. He walked around the desk and kissed her forehead. His lips were warm. Yuna is stopping by later, he said, leaning against the desk. She is bringing her portfolio. She got into the Art Institute. I knew she would. Felicia smiled. She took his hand, playing with the simple gold band on his ring finger. How was the board meeting? Boring. Min-Ho smirked. Being a legitimate tech consultant is incredibly dull compared to the old days. No explosions. No knife fights. Just spreadsheets. Do you miss it? He looked at her. He looked at the clinic. He looked at the life they had built on the ashes of his past. Not for a second. He squeezed her hand. You know, today is the anniversary. Of what? Of the day I got stabbed in a bar, and a beautiful woman yelled at me for bleeding on her cardigan. Felicia laughed. Worst date of my life. Min-Ho smiled. That rare, genuine smile that reaches eyes. Best night of mine. He pulled her close. The sounds of the clinic faded into the background. They were far from the neon lights of the Velvet Lounge. They were far from the cold mansion on the cliff. They were here, in the warmth of a life chosen, not inherited. A life forged in blood, sealed in sacrifice, and sustained by the simple, radical act of choosing each other, every single day. And that is where our story ends. Or maybe it is where it begins. Because Felicia and Min-Ho prove that destiny isn't written in the stars. It is written in the choices we make when we are terrified. It is written in the text sent to a father, the hand pressing on a wound, the refusal to let go. If this story moved you, if you believe that love is worth burning down an empire for, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs a reminder to trust their gut. And tell me in the comments, what is the biggest risk you have ever taken for love? Did it pay off? I want to hear your stories. Until next time, stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the wrong date leads to the right life.